Welcome back to another great episode of Beerfield Fantasy Shots. I'm your host tonight, the bartender, Dan Theory at 30 BFF. It's Tuesday. You know what that means. Waiver wire episode. Last week I did a kind of like a top 10-ish. I felt like I missed some players because of that. So instead of doing a top 10, I'm just going to read off some players and some defenses from each position of guys you should be targeting. Some are obviously more important than others. I'm not going to give an order, just names out there. Some will be obvious, some will not be obvious. So just make sure you get these claims in prior to tomorrow, or at least until your waivers go through if they're not Wednesday morning like most leagues are. So we're going to kick off real quick with the quarterbacks. I got two here. Just a disclaimer, these are all taken off of ESPN's 50% owned or less in ESPN leagues. I'm not going off of Yahoo or NFL.com where these will be different. Just ESPN is where we play a majority of our leagues. That's where our league of record will be in. That's where the Dynasty League is that I run with Chris and Nick as well. So as I was saying, Carson Wentz owned in 47.1%. He's got a decent matchup this week against the Giants. The Giants have been struggling, not just on offense but on defense as well. They have a good defense and they have two very good corners. It's just when your offense doesn't get it going, your defense tends to struggle. You know, you saw it with the Vikings last year. You're seeing it with Seattle this year, with Seattle this year. It's two great defenses that can hold you, but when the offense can't get you off the field, you tend to get tired out. So Carson Wentz, a good streamer. For a deep league streamer, for those 16-plus leagues, maybe two quarterbacks leagues, or just a deep roster. Josh McCown against the Dolphins. Phillip Rivers lit him up last week. Josh McCown isn't Phillip Rivers, but the Jets are fucking terrible. He may throw you a pick or two, but when this game gets out of hand and he has to throw, he's proved himself that he can be an okay flex option. He's got the rapport, and the passing game's kind of there. It's not high on my QB boards. I believe my QB 20 or 21. It's just a late-in stream option when you need somebody if something were to happen. Moving on to the running backs, we got a few here. Shane Vereen, 31.7% owned, needs to be owned. He's the safest back with the Giants. He gets the targets, he gets the checkdowns with the Giants struggling offensive line to keep the plays going, and a struggling Odell who's hurt, and then a struggling Marshall who can't catch passes right now. You're going to find a theme here of other Giants players that are little important to own here. Next is probably the biggest ad of the week, and that's going to be Chris Carson out of Seattle, owning 9.7% of leagues right now. He is the RB1 there in Seattle. And Seattle's offensive line is terrible, but now that the running game has been figured out, and Carson's looked the best by far. He may not get the passing role right away, and CJ Prosise will still have his job per se. But Carson got 20 carries last week, I believe, a reception or two. So he does get involved in the passing game, but the big thing here is that they figured out who their lead back is. And lead backs in the NFL, especially for fantasy, are very important to own. So he needs, if he's available, I'll go get him. I would spend probably half my fat budget on him at this point. I don't know if he'll be an RB1, but he is the presumed starter with Rawls still coming back from injury, and Lacey kind of dead at this point. Next is Buck Allen. He's owned in 8.6% of leagues right now. He would normally be the #1 ad this week if it wasn't for Chris Carson. I love Buck Allen. He has led the team in carries the last 2 weeks. He's led the team in snaps for running backs in the last 2 weeks. While he's getting somewhat better, Terrence West is getting worse. You also factor in Alex Collins, who doesn't really hurt Allen. He hurts West more. But because of the looming West still there, who still gets touchdowns, who still gets the goal line carries, Buck Allen has a safe floor, which is what we like in fantasy, especially in PPR leagues. But he doesn't have the upside as of a Chris Carson would. Next is Donta Foreman. He's owned in 4.9% of leagues. It's kind of a deeper league stash. Lamar Miller is still the guy there, and he's still going to probably see probably 20 touches a game, maybe a little less. But Foreman looked good against Cincy. At least starting out, he looked like to be the better runner. They've been talking about getting him more involved, more carries, and then with an offense with a rookie quarterback that they want to protect and not let them kind of throw to win and let their defense in the running game kind of keep them in games and win games. He's not a terrible guy to own. You won't start him right away, but he's definitely a guy to hold on to. Next is Samaje Perine, which is kind of pains me to say. He's only 2.2% of leagues. If Rob Kelly is the missign, Perine is the main runner there. He won't give up too many touches or too many carries to Chris Thompson. But Rob Kelly looked decent last week. Perine didn't look great, but he's the lead back. On good matchups, if Kelly were to miss multiple weeks, he's not a bad guy to own. If he has a good week, maybe you trade him off afterwards. Last running back is Jalen Richard, owned at 2.5% of leagues out of Oakland. He's their catcher. We're a pro phrasing show here. He's the catcher out there in Oakland. And with what we saw last week against the Jets, even when the game was out of hand, he still got his touches. Even when the game was somewhat close, even though it really never was close, he still got touches. Lynch is on a snap count, is on a carry count, and it's been between Washington and Richard, and it looks like Richard's probably the safer guy of the two to own. And in deep leagues and in deeper roster benches, he definitely needs to be owned. Moving on to the receivers quickly here. Sterling Shepard, see that Giants team, owned at 41.8%. If he's in your league, he should be owned. With a struggling Marshall and a hurt Odell, he seems to be the guy that's getting the majority of those looks. The problem with him is not really him, it's Eli. So he's not a must start or a must own per se, but he is a guy that if you're looking for receiver help, is a guy to at least attempt to roster and see what happens. Next is Cooper Kupp. I don't really see how that's 32.3%, but it is. He had a bad week last week, but it was against a good defense with Washington. And then Goff just looked a little bit off. He's got a good matchup this week against the 49ers on Thursday night. I wouldn't feel comfortable starting him Thursday night, but he has the trust and the chemistry with Goff that we want to see. He had a hell of a catch last week against the Redskins. He just didn't really put up the stats because of Goff. So it's just like the guy before him, Shepard. He's not a really guy that you want to throw out there right away, but he should be owned a lot more than 32.3% of leagues. And if you need receivers, he is a guy to go pick up. Next is Marqise Lee out of Jacksonville, 30.1% of leagues. He needs to be owned. It's between him and Hearns. He out-targeted Hearns last week, but Hearns got the touchdown. Look, Jacksonville is a weird team. They have a good defense. They have, and a legit running back. But when they get behind because of Bortles, and they enter into that garbage time where Bortles just seems to feast, these two will become those guys. Without Allen Robinson and a hurt Westbrook, Lee's a guy that should be on. And I know they just picked up Jalen Strawn, and I'll be talking about that on the news episode. But it's Lee and Hearns, and if Lee continues to get the targets that we saw last week, he will be effective, especially in PPR leagues. Next is Mohamed Sanu, on 22.5% of leagues. Sanu's getting his targets. He had a decent week. I think he went 5 for 85. And he's finally kind of living up to that number 2 role, which Atlanta's been, kind of striving. It's been kind of seeking since Roddy White left, which is why they brought him in last year. Again, not a guy that you need to throw out there right away, but he's not a bad flex option with bye weeks starting to come up, and he's starting to show a little more of a safer floor, which is what we want from our flex options. Next are both Cardinals receivers, J.J. Nelson and John Brown. If John Brown does not go, these guys are almost must-starts. I don't say must-starts, but they're definitely flex-worthy plays. J.J. Nelson's the big play guy. Jerron Brown is a target guy. And J.J. Nelson had the good week last week, but so did Jerron Brown. Though he wasn't efficient, he only got 4 passes on his 11 targets, but he's getting targeted, which is what you want to see. You want opportunity. So to me, give me the guy that's going to get targeted. He at least has the better chance of, of catching the football. But this is really dependent on John Brown. Both these guys should be owned. J.J. Nelson is at 27.7%, and John Brown is at 0.7%. Next is probably the biggest receiver to own, and that's Jermaine Kearse at 6.5% out of the Jets. I know he's the Jets receiver, and the Jets are bad. But just like Jacksonville over the last couple of seasons, when there's garbage time, who the fuck cares in fantasy if there's garbage time? You want garbage time with these bad teams. He's been producing 3 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. He didn't get the targets as of last week, but with the Jets as bad as they are, they should be seeing more garbage time. And Jermaine Kearse could be turning into last year's Terrell Pryor. He maybe not get the 1,000 yards and the 77 receptions and I believe the absurd 141 targets or something like that. But he is a guy to own. I mean, he's the number one there on an offense that's going to be throwing a lot. So just like I said about a lot of these other guys, if you're looking for receivers to own, he's definitely the number one receiver to target in waiver this week. Some players, some of the casual fantasy owners may not see that. They see a Jets and they go, I don't want a fucking Jets player. You should be like, I want Kearse. I'm not going to see 2 touchdowns a game, obviously, but if I can get a 6, 7, 8, reception game on 8, 9, 10 targets and 85 yards and hopefully get a score, that's great for your flex, no matter what league you're in. Next is Devin Funchess at 6% out of Carolina. With the news about Greg Olsen going on IR and maybe with him returning in 6 to 7 weeks or 8 weeks, I think it is, he looked good. He didn't look great. He looked good. And now it's become the Kelvin Benjamin and Devin Funchess show. Benjamin should probably see the biggest uptick with the injury to Olsen and Cam getting more. I guess Cam getting healthier and better from the pocket. I expect Carolina to start, unleashing him a little bit more as these weeks go on. And he should see his uptick in targets. He's ownable. I don't know if he's startable in bad matchups. He's a flex play with good matchups, but he should be owned and he should be on his bench if you can afford the roster spot there. The next is Rashard Higgins out of Cleveland. He's owned in 0.4% of leagues right now. Kenny Britt's been a big disappointment. Jamie Colts, who they traded for, has been a big disappointment. They both have that I don't give a fuck attitude anymore, which is horrible to see. I know Cleveland sucks, but they're rebuilding. They got a decent defense. They have a decent running game. The offensive line's been a tad bit inconsistent, and Kaiser's still a rookie, but he's getting targeted. I think he got targeted in 12 times on Sunday, and he's looking like he could be taking over, succeeding that Terrell Pryor spot, at least in terms of the the next Cleveland receiver who's going to be their true number one. He's an ad. I won't say he's a must add, but if you can afford the roster spot, I would roster him. He's just like Kearse in the sense where he's on a bad enough offense so where if they fall behind, they have to throw. I don't trust Kaiser as much as I would trust McCown. But if you're getting 12 targets, if you're getting upwards to 8 or more a game, that's rosterable. And that's, definitely flex worthy against good matchups. Next are tight ends. There's only 2 here. Coby Fleener at 30.6%. Look, the Saints have a bad matchup this week against Carolina, who've been, pretty good against tight ends so far this year. But he seems to be the most consistent Saints player. Breeze is, throwing it around without Snead. Fleener's turned into the number 2 target there, right behind Michael Thomas. Ted Ginn can't catch a football. And Tommy Lee Lewis, the best drummer in fantasy football, is their new playmaker, is their new deep threat guy. So Fleener gets, like Thomas, over the middle. He's been getting targeted, a decent amount for tight ends, and he scored in both games. And with the shallow options of tight ends right now, if you're not a Gronk, a Kelsey, or an Ertz, which is probably your safest option, you're looking for that guy. You're looking for your Olsen replacement. You're looking for your potential Graham replacement. Fleener is that guy, and he's not rostered right now in almost 70% of leagues. So if you need a tight end, He's a guy to go grab, especially with the loss of Olsen and the potential lost games from Graham if his ankle injuries a lot more severe. Next is Evan Engram, 10.7% of leagues. Same thing with Sterling Shepard. He's been the bright spot with the Giants team. With an injury to Odell and Marshall struggling, Eli is going to throw to somebody. They have a decent enough offense to make drives. He's not, I'm going to roster him and start him, but if you have a deeper roster spot, or if you're in a deeper league and guys like Fleener are gone, and you had an Olsen or you had a Graham, and you're like, fuck, what do I do? Evan Engram is that guy to go grab. He's got upside. He's a bigger wide receiver playing tight end, and he's getting targeted. He got targeted 7 times last night. So go out and grab him. Go out and grab him if you're looking for a deeper flyer from tight end. Next, our defenses. They got 4 here. They can probably be more. The Ravens, the #1 defense in fantasy right now at 49.8%, just shy of 50. If you need a defense, start them. They're almost a lock, top 3 at least. At least for this week. They're playing Jacksonville in London, so things could be fucking weird. Maybe they suck, maybe they don't. But I've made it my point to draft the Ravens in drafts this year, and they have not disappointed at all. Next are the Rams at 31.3%. Another great matchup. They're playing against the Rams Thursday night, they're playing against the 49ers on Thursday night. The Rams seem to feast on bad offenses. At least we saw that against the Colts. And they didn't do horrible against the Skins. They got pressure all day on Cousins. The Rams haven't been protecting Hoyer very well. They've been running the ball very well, but they haven't been protecting Hoyer there, which means that there's opportunity for sacks and picks. It should be a decently low-scoring game, as both offenses are still trying to figure their shit out outside of Todd Gurley and Carlos Hyde. Next are the Eagles defense, 13.1%. They're playing against a Giants team that's been struggling mightily. They're also a very opportunistic defense where they can give up a lot of points and yards, but there's always a pick six or a fumble return or a punt return with Sproles that really saves your day. In some weeks, they just flat out win your league, or just flat out win your week for you. So they're a good defense to stream if you're looking for that. I have 2 defenses here that are for your deeper leagues, and your 16 plus, your 14 plus, where people for some fucking reason are owning 2 defenses. They're the Browns and the Dolphins. The Browns at 1.2% and the Dolphins at 3.3%. The Browns get the Colts. The Browns have an okay defense. They haven't looked great. They haven't looked bad. I mean, they held Big Ben at home to a fairly poor week. They kept Bell in check, and they're playing against an Indy team that's still trying to figure out their shit. Who looked better against the Cardinals? Not great, but like I said, if you're in a deep league where there's not a lot of great matchups there, look for the defense that's playing against the Colts. Look for the defense that's playing against the Jets. And who gets the Jets this week in my great transition is the Dolphins at 3.3% owned. The Dolphins are a decent stream this week. They may have gotten lit up by Rivers in this passing game, but they kept Gordon in check. They did keep Oliver in check, even though he had one nice run. But the Jets' offense is Matt Forte and Bilal Powell. You saw the Bills completely destroy them week 1 on the ground. And then you have to force McCown to beat you. And McCown is no stranger to picks, to taking sacks, and to pick sixes and things like that. So Miami's a good upside defense here. They should be looking to put away this game early. A lot of throwing opportunity for set, which leads to sacks and picks. So that's all I got for my waiver wire ads with some streaming options there as well. I'm Dan Thury at Thury BFF. You can follow my two great co-hosts, Chris Hopper at Hop BFF with 2 P's, and Nick Sparks, who's mainly on the show page, but his individual Twitter page is at Nick Sparks with a Z, not an S. Otherwise, catch us next time. I will be back here tonight to do news. It's a little early. I'll probably drop that after we record. What else I got? I think Nick will be on tomorrow night doing his starts and sits. And then Thursday, I'm back again to do kind of the what to look out for. I'll figure something out to make those a little bit shorter. That's all I got, and I'll see you guys tonight. Peace.